Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So, as you all know, I'm a part of a book club. I'm a founder, co founder of the book club Reading as Activism. I encourage you to like our Facebook page, Reading as Activism, and to follow us on Instagram at Reading as Activism. Uh, but today I wanted to talk about the last book that we read. This past Saturday, we read and discussed Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye. And I just want to provide a brief review of the book. It's an excellent book. I mean, as you all know, Toni Morrison is a brilliant writer. And one of the things that makes this book different from a lot of books is just the way that she writes. She writes in a poetic type of fashion. She uses a lot of similes and metaphors in this book that help to paint clear pictures, vivid pictures of the scenes that she describes and the characters and everything. And another thing that I like to say about this book is that it has very thorough character development. It goes into the background stories of the particular characters, and it helps you understand how they became who they became. Um, so even some of the most evil characters, characters that do some evil things, they tell you about the backstory. And I want to let people know this book is a very disturbing book. So if you're looking for a happy-go-lucky, everybody lives happily ever after type of book, this is not the book. And it has some strong content in it. It has, um, things like rape of children. And the main character, 11 years old, is raped in this book. Very disturbing. And then you have this other character who actually molests young girls. So that's just a heads up for people that are interested in reading this book. Now, the book, as you know, is titled The Bluest Eye. And the reason why it's titled that is because the main character, Pecola, actually wants to have blue eyes. And this is a black girl. From what I understand, she's a dark skinned girl. And she has been described and described herself as ugly. And she saw that if she had blue eyes, her world would become better. Like she would not only be viewed as more beautiful, uh, the way she would look at the world would be different, and the way the world would perceive her would be different, and her whole reality would change. She actually thought that, by having blue eyes, her world would change. So she literally prays for blue eyes. And just that concept alone, having this deep seated self hatred is very deep. And the funny thing is, like, while this little girl is literally praying for blue eyes, I remember, when they first came out with these colored contacts, and you see a lot of black women, back then when they first came out, a lot of black women wearing these colored contacts, and some of them even do it today, where they literally change their eyes to blue or to some other color. And one of the other characters in this book talks about how they would view that as out of place. They didn't see how a black girl having blue eyes would make her any better or anything like that. And this story really gets into some deep programming. Like they talk about like the impact of toys, like in films and things like that. Because we know for the longest time, a lot of times our young kids, our girls in particular, have been programmed to idolize whiteness, period, through toys and stuff, through dolls. And you all have seen that famous test that was done around the time of Brown versus the Board of Education, where they presented children with two dolls, the black one and the white one. And you saw that the children reacted towards the two dolls in a different kind of way. The white doll was viewed as beautiful and good, and the black doll was viewed as ugly and bad. And I saw somebody do a remake of that particular test in the last few years recently, and they saw that they had the same reactions from the children. So it is very disturbing and profound that you would have young children already programmed to hate themselves. So that's, a big part of the story. This story even goes into profound things like religion, and God and evil in the world. And, they raise the question of whether or not God created evil in this world. And they cite, they talk about that, like how, one of the characters in particular writes a letter to God, and he, this blasphemous type of letter to God, basically suggesting that he would be able to make a better world than God would. He would be able to do a better job at, setting destiny than God would and creating the world. So it's a very disturbing type of dialogue. It just makes you think about a lot of things. Like when you look at the evil in the world that exists in the world, whether it's slavery, the enslavement of black people for hundreds of years, racism and oppression, when you look at the genocide of the Native American people and the Jews in Nazi Germany and things of that nature. Those things make you think, like, why would a just and merciful God allow these types of things to occur? And, and that's a question that's been going on for the end of time. But those are the types of issues that this particular book raises. Another question or issue that's raised in this book is just the relationship between black men and women. They make a lot of statements about that. And they're not in, direct statements, but it's based on the interactions of the characters. And one of the things that I noticed in this story, just like a lot of stories, from some black women writers, it painted the black man in a negative light. In this book, there's only one strong black male character in the book. The other characters are really, a lot of them are despicable. You have boys in this story that are liars, that are, mean and cruel and bullies and stuff like that. Then you have a grown man that rapes his own daughter. And then you have another man who molests little girls, as I mentioned before. And that particular person is like a false prophet. The last person that I mentioned, he's like a false prophet. And that speaks to like corruption and religion. And it kind of reminded me of the scandal with the Catholic Church, where you had a lot of these pastors molesting children. So that's a theme that comes up in this book. And this book deals with the concept of self-hatred and how black people are taught to hate themselves. One thing that they touch upon is just like movies and stuff, the impact of movies, how movies can change just the relationship even between men and women, the expectations that women have in relationships and stuff like that. And even the concept of whiteness, like, where you're taught that, somehow white people are better than black people. So it's really deep. So, and then one question that was real interesting that was raised in this book was a question by one of the characters. Like, one of the characters was basically talking about how there are niggers and there are colored people. And this woman made a distinction, so basically she was saying, well, you got the ignorant, loud black people and you got the civilized black people and stuff like that. And this particular person didn't even want her kids playing around with black kids. Like, she wanted them to be, preferred them to be with white kids. And if not, these quote unquote colored kids instead of the niggers. And that kind of reminded me of what Chris Rock was saying. He had a whole routine where he said that they are black people and that they are niggers and stuff. So that raises a profound question. And just to answer that particular question, I just think that that is a reflection of classism, elitism, and just the need to feel better. And it's like a form of internalized racism where, since, you have been subjected to racism, you try to impose racism within your own group, similar to colorism. And colorism is also an issue in this book. There's this one character who comes to this school, comes to this middle school or whatever, and she's light-skinned. Based from what I read, she's light-skinned, she got the long hair and all that kind of stuff. and everybody loves her and everybody appreciates her and all that kind of stuff. And she's celebrated as beautiful. She's very popular among black kids and white kids and stuff like that. Um, Whereas the darker skinned character is defined as ugly. You know, throughout the book, they describe her as ugly. Um, Even when she was born, like, which is so sad, like her own mother was referring to her as ugly and stuff. So they deal with the colorism and the hair issues that exist in the black community and stuff. They touch on it. So those are some of the themes that came up in this book. It's a book that I highly recommend. It's an easy read. I read it in a couple of days. Like under, you know, I'm sure that a lot of people had a perception that Toni Morrison's books are challenging to read and all that kind of stuff. And so far they haven't been. I haven't read like many of her books. I've only read two of the books, and they've been with the book club. The first book I read was Jazz, and this has been the second book that I read of Toni Morrison. Uh, but it's easy reading. Again, I read it in a couple of days, but I was focused on trying to finish it before the book club meeting. So, yeah, but it's an easy read. So those are my thoughts about the book. You know, I encourage you all to read it. And if you've read it, tell me what you think about the book. Did you enjoy it? Why or why not? What was your favorite part in the book? So with that, I'm going to say peace and blessings. And again, I encourage you to like our Facebook page, Reading as Activism, and to join us at our next meeting. We meet on the last Saturday of each month of the year. And I want to hear from you. Like, I'm looking for our next, we're in the process of selecting our next book, and I want a book from a black male author. This is a classic, you know, a classic book from a black male author that will draw in more men to the book club and to the discussion. And we've had quite a few men join us, but, you know, the last discussion, um, you know, there was only a few black men. It was like over 90% women. So that's the reason why I want to have the next book be a book by a black man from a black male perspective, something that will draw in black men to the discussion. Because for some reason, like, it just seems like a lot of times black men are really not interested in reading books. But I could understand like why they may not have been interested in reading this book, because it's geared towards women and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, like, I want to hear what from you. Tell me what your recommendations are. Please rate, comment, subscribe, like the video, share the video, hit that notification bell so that you'll know when I post new content on here. Peace and blessings. Have a great day.